The grand archive of Zethros Prime hummed with anticipation. Thousands of species from across the Galactic Coalition had gathered in the crystalline amphitheater, their eyes fixed on the obsidian monolith standing at the center. The artifact, recovered from the ruins of the Precursor civilization, bore inscriptions that had stumped the galaxy's finest linguists for 3 decades. Today was the final trial. Commander Vex'ala of the Korthan Empire stood at the podium, her forearms crossed in obvious disdain. She was tall, regal, with scales that shimmered like polished emeralds under the amphitheater's lights. Behind her sat the Council of Tongues, 20 of the most brilliant xenolinguists in known space. They had spent years attempting to crack the Precursor script. They had failed, every single one of them. This trial, Vex'ala announced, her voice booming through translation devices, represents our last opportunity to unlock the secrets of the ancients. The Precursor civilization predates our oldest records by millennia. Their technology could revolutionize warfare, medicine, perhaps even breach the barriers between dimensions. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the crowd. We have invited representatives from every member species to attempt what our experts could not. Should anyone succeed in translating even a single phrase from the monolith, they will be granted access to our most sacred archives and awarded the Crimson Star of Excellence. Murmurs rippled through the audience. The Crimson Star was no mere trophy. It came with political power, wealth beyond measure, and a seat on the High Council itself. One by one, candidates approached the monolith. A Selenite mathematician spent 2 hours calculating probability matrices. A Vorgothi priest chanted invocations to 17 different deities. A cybernetic nexus drone scanned the inscriptions with every frequency spectrum known to science. Each one walked away defeated, their shoulders slumped, their dreams shattered. Then came the human. Marcus Chen strolled up to the monolith with his hands in his pockets, looking like he had wandered into the amphitheater by accident. He was average height for his species, with messy black hair and a slightly wrinkled jumpsuit that suggested he had slept in it. Probably because he had, Vex'ala's eyes narrowed. State your credentials, human. Oh, right. Marcus Chen, freelance archaeologist. Also a part-time bartender. But that is probably not relevant here. Laughter erupted from several sections of the audience. The Korthan delegation hissed their disapproval. You dare mock this sacred trial? Vex'ala demanded. Marcus held up his hands defensively. No mocking intended, Commander. I am just saying, full disclosure and all that. Honesty is important. Vex'ala's scales rippled with barely contained fury. You have 1 standard hour. Begin. Marcus approached the monolith, pulling a battered notebook and a simple ballpoint pen from his pocket. The contrast was almost comical. Here stood an artifact that had confounded the greatest minds in the galaxy, and this human had brought office supplies. He circled the monolith slowly, occasionally jotting notes. The audience grew restless. 15 minutes passed, then 30. Marcus hummed tunelessly, completely oblivious to the thousands of eyes boring into his back. At 45 minutes, he stopped, straightened up, looked at the monolith with his head tilted, like someone examining a painting in a museum. Huh, he said. Just that. Huh. Vex'ala's patience snapped. If you have nothing productive to contribute, human, then step aside and stop wasting everyone's time. Marcus turned to face her, and there was something in his eyes now. Something sharp. Dangerous. The easygoing demeanor had not quite vanished, but it had shifted, revealing edges beneath. Commander, before I share my findings, I have a question. Make it quick. Did anyone bother checking if this script was actually meant to be difficult? Silence crashed over the amphitheater like a physical force. Explain yourself, Vex'ala said slowly. Marcus gestured at the monolith. See, humans have this saying. When you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. Means the simplest explanation is usually correct. Everyone has been treating this like some grand cosmic riddle, right? Applying quantum linguistics, xenosemantic analysis, probabilistic decryption algorithms. Really impressive stuff. He paused, letting them hang on his words. But what if the precursors were not trying to hide anything? What if they just wanted to communicate? One of the council members, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Philosopher Ool, pulsed with bioluminescent skepticism. You suggest the script is simple? We have applied every known translation matrix. The symbols correspond to no existing language family. That is because you have been looking at it wrong, Marcus said. He walked back to the monolith and tapped a sequence of symbols. These are not letters. They are not even really words in the traditional sense. They are musical notes. The amphitheater exploded with noise. Shouts of disbelief, accusations of fraud, demands for proof. Vexala silenced them with a gesture. Demonstrate, Marcus grinned. Thought you would never ask. He pulled out a small harmonica from another pocket. Of course he had a harmonica. Each symbol represents a pitch and duration. The precursors were a species that communicated primarily through sound. Their written language was basically sheet music. Watch. He began to play. The notes were haunting, alien yet strangely beautiful. They echoed through the amphitheater, and something impossible happened. The monolith began to glow. Soft at first, then brighter, until symbols lifted from the stone itself and floated in the air, rearranging themselves into new configurations. Words formed, not in the precursor language, but in galactic standard. Welcome, younger races, to the archive of songs. We leave you our knowledge freely, for wisdom hoarded is wisdom wasted. Learn well, grow strong, and remember that the universe is vast enough for all voices to be heard. The glow faded. The symbols settled back into the stone. The amphitheater was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop on the far side of the galaxy. Marcus pocketed his harmonica. So, original font or improved? Because I could probably jazz it up with some better notation if you want. Make it more readable for species without perfect pitch. Vexala stared at him. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. One of the human delegates in the audience, an older woman named Dr. Sarah Kowalski, started laughing. It began as a chuckle, then grew into full-bodied laughter that infected other humans in attendance. Soon, representatives from a dozen species were joining in, the absurdity of the situation finally breaking through their shock. The Corthan delegation did not laugh. They looked like they had swallowed something poisonous. Impossible, Vexala finally managed. Our best linguists spent decades on this problem. Yeah, about that, Marcus said, his tone shifting into something colder. Want to know why they failed? Because they did not want to succeed. Not really. The laughter died. What did you say? Vexala's voice was ice. Marcus pointed at the Council of Tongues. Think about it, Commander. What happens when a mystery gets solved? The experts lose their funding, their prestige, their jobs. The Precursor script was a golden goose. As long as it remained undeciphered, research grants kept flowing. Reputations stayed intact. Careers were built on failure dressed up as diligent effort. Philosopher Uhl flashed angry reds and oranges. You accuse us of deliberate deception? Of sabotaging our own work? Not all of you, probably, but some? Yeah. I am willing to bet at least a few members of your little club noticed the musical patterns and decided to keep quiet. Could not let some outsider waltz in and solve what you had been failing at for 3 decades. Bad for business. Vexala's scales darkened to a deep, furious green. These are serious allegations, human. Do you have proof? Marcus pulled out his notebook and tossed it to her. Page 17. During my research, I accessed public archives of the early studies. Found a report from 28 years ago by a junior researcher named Kellix. He proposed the musical theory. His findings were dismissed by the senior council members. 3 months later, he died in a convenient shuttle accident. His research disappeared from official records. He let that sink in. But humans, we are paranoid pack rats. We back up everything. I found Kellix's original report in an obscure data cache on Earth. Been sitting there for nearly 3 decades, gathering digital dust. No one bothered to look, because who cares what some dead alien junior researcher thought, right? The crowd erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Angry, accusatory. Council members began shouting at each other, pointing fingers, demanding explanations. Vexala held up all 4 arms. Silence! The crowd obeyed, but barely. She turned to Marcus, and her expression was unreadable. You have done what our finest could not, or would not accomplish. The Crimson Star is yours, human. As is access to our archives. About that, Marcus said. I do not want your star. Keep it. What I want is justice for Kellix and anyone else who got buried because they threatened the status quo. And I want the Council of Tongues dissolved. Replace them with people who actually care about discovery more than their own reputations. Gasps echoed through the amphitheater. Vexala studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. It will be done. You have my word as commander of the Corthan. Empire. Marcus smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Good. Because if it is not, I will make sure every news outlet in the galaxy knows how a hungover bartender with a harmonica embarrassed your entire scientific establishment. And trust me, Commander, humans are very, very good at holding grudges. He turned and walked toward the exit, leaving chaos in his wake. Dr. Kowalski caught up with him at the archway. That was reckless, she said, though her tone carried approval. Probably, Marcus agreed. But someone had to call them out. How many other discoveries have been suppressed because they threatened the wrong people? How much progress have we lost to academic politics and ego? Sarah nodded slowly. What will you do now? Marcus glanced back at the monolith, still glowing faintly with precursor light. The message said they left us knowledge freely. I intend to make sure it stays free. No gatekeepers. No committees deciding who deserves access. Everyone gets to learn. The Coalition will fight you on that. Let them try. His grin was sharp enough to cut steel. They just learned what happens when you underestimate a human. I am really curious to see if they are dumb enough to try again. The news spread like wildfire across the Galactic Coalition. Within hours, the human who decoded the Precursor script became the most talked about being in civilized space. Marcus Chen, the bartender archaeologist who had humiliated the galaxy's intellectual elite with a harmonica and office supplies. The Korthan Empire kept its word. Commander Vex Allah personally oversaw the dissolution of the Council of Tongues. 17 members resigned in disgrace. 4 were arrested pending investigation into Kelix's death. The remaining archives opened to public access for the first time in galactic history. But not everyone was pleased with this development. 3 weeks after the trial, Marcus sat in a dingy bar on Station Omega-7, nursing a drink that tasted like battery acid mixed with regret. The establishment was called the Broken Compass, which seemed appropriate given his current situation. Across from him sat Dr. Sarah Kowalski, looking considerably more worried than she had at the amphitheater. They put a bounty on your head, she said without preamble. Marcus took another sip, grimaced. How much? 50 million credits. Dead or alive, though I suspect they prefer dead. Flattering. Who posted it? Anonymous. But intelligence suggests it came from the Syndicate of Preserved Knowledge. Turns out several former council members had connections to them. They have been controlling information flow across 12 sectors for centuries. You just destroyed their business model. Marcus set down his glass. Let me guess. They are not happy about the whole free information thing. They sent assassins, Marcus. 3 teams. We intercepted 2, but the third went dark 4 hours ago. Could be anywhere. Well, that explains the creepy feeling I have had all evening. He glanced around the bar. Sparse crowd. A few spacers. A Vorgothi couple in the corner. An older Selenite reading something on a datapad. Nobody obviously suspicious, which meant absolutely nothing. Sarah leaned forward. This is not a joke. These people have toppled governments. You need protection. Come back to Earth. We can keep you safe. Can you, though? Marcus met her eyes. Really think about it, Sarah. These people have operated in shadows for centuries. They have resources we cannot imagine. Putting me in a bunker on Earth just means I die in a bunker instead of a bar. At least here, the drinks are cheaper. So what? You just wait for them to kill you? Nope. He smiled, and there was that dangerous edge again. I am going to kill them first. Sarah blinked. Excuse me? The Syndicate exists because people are afraid of them. Because they control narratives and suppress threats quietly, efficiently. But they just made a mistake. They went after me publicly, put a bounty on my head. That means everyone knows they are scared. And scared organizations make sloppy choices. He pulled out his battered notebook, flipping to a page covered in dense handwriting. While everyone was celebrating our big revelation, I did some digging. The Precursor archive contained more than just that welcome message. There are coordinates, locations of other Precursor facilities across the galaxy, places full of technology and knowledge that the Syndicate has probably been sitting on for decades. Sarah's eyes widened. You want to raid them? I want to expose them. Hit every facility, broadcast everything we find. No encryption, no paywalls, just raw data dumped into the public sphere. Let every species, every citizen, every kid with a datapad have access to Precursor knowledge. The Syndicate cannot survive that kind of transparency. That is insane. You would need ships, crew, military support. Even if you had all that, you would be painting a target on your back the size of a moon. Already got the target, might as well earn it. Marcus flagged down the bartender, a squat Dravian with 6 arms. Hey Crix, you still running guns for the rebellion? The Dravian's eyes narrowed. Depends who is asking. Someone who needs transport and does not ask too many questions about cargo manifests. Crix studied him for a long moment, then grinned, showing 3 rows of crystalline teeth. You are that human. The one who embarrassed the council. Guilty. I heard you made some powerful enemies. Heard correctly. Good. Crix slammed a massive hand on the bar. I hate those knowledge-hoarding parasites. They charged my colony 10,000 credits for agricultural data that should have been free. Half our children starved that winter. You want to burn down their empire? I am in, Sarah shook her head. This is madness. You are building a crew in a bar. Best place for it, Marcus said cheerfully. Bars are where desperate people and good ideas meet, usually in that order. Over the next hour, the crew assembled itself. Crix brought his ship, a beat-up freighter called the Rusty Comet. A selenite engineer named Quor overheard the conversation and volunteered her services, mentioning that the Syndicate had stolen her research on faster-than-light communications and sold it to the highest bidder. A human mercenary named Jackson Rivers walked in specifically looking for Marcus, saying he owed the Syndicate payback for killing his sister. By the time the third assassin team finally revealed themselves, Marcus had 12 people ready to fight. The assassins were professionals, Corthan Shadow operatives equipped with stealth fields and plasma weapons. They materialized near Marcus's table like nightmares given form. The lead assassin, a female with scars crisscrossing her scales, pointed a weapon at Marcus's head. Marcus Chen, you have been judged and found guilty of crimes against the Syndicate of Preserved Knowledge. Your sentence is death. Marcus took another sip of his terrible drink. Do you guys rehearse these speeches, or does it come naturally? The assassin's finger tightened on the trigger. Crix's 6 arms moved faster than thought. Glasses shattered. Tables flipped. The bar exploded into chaos. Jackson Rivers put 2 rounds through the lead assassin's shield generator before she could fire. Quor disabled another's weapon with some kind of electromagnetic pulse. The Vergothi couple in the corner turned out to be undercover coalition agents who had been watching Marcus for protection. The fight lasted 30 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 3 assassins lay unconscious, their weapons scattered across the floor. Marcus had not moved from his seat. Anyone else want to collect the bounty? He called out to the bar. Silence answered him. He stood up, dropping credits on the table for his drink. Right then, let's go steal some forbidden knowledge and make the galaxy a better place. The crew of the Rusty Comet launched 6 hours later. Their first target was a Syndicate facility in the Kepler Drift, a region of space so dense with cosmic radiation that most species avoided it. According to the Precursor coordinates, there was a vault there containing biotechnology research. The raid went smoother than expected. The Syndicate had relied on secrecy and location for security, not actual defenses. Quor cracked their encryption in minutes. Jackson Rivers handled the handful of guards with professional efficiency. Marcus walked into the vault and started downloading everything to open broadcast channels. Data flooded the galactic networks. Cures for diseases, agricultural techniques, energy generation systems. All of it free. All of it available to anyone with a receiver. The Syndicate's response was predictable. More assassins, more bounties, more threats. Marcus's response was equally predictable. More raids, more data dumps, more exposure. The pattern repeated across 8 facilities over the next month. With each raid, the crew grew. More volunteers. More people who had been hurt by the Syndicate's information monopoly. More beings who wanted revenge, justice, or just a chance to tear down a corrupt system. The Coalition watched with growing alarm. Some member species demanded Marcus's arrest. Others quietly funded his operations. Political lines blurred. Old alliances fractured. Then came the big one. The Precursor coordinates included a location near the galactic core. A facility so massive it showed up on gravitational sensors. The Syndicate's headquarters. Sarah contacted Marcus on encrypted channels, begging him to reconsider. This is suicide. They will have armies guarding that place. You will never make it out alive. Probably not, Marcus agreed. He was on the bridge of the Rusty Comet, watching the facility grow larger on the view screen. It looked like a metal moon, bristling with weapons and shields. But we will get the data out. That is what matters. Is revenge really worth dying for? This is not about revenge anymore, Sarah. It is about making sure Kellix did not die for nothing. It is about all the kids who starved because agricultural data cost too much. It is about every person who suffered because someone decided knowledge should have a price tag. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Humans have this phrase. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Everything we learn, we build on what came before. But what happens when the giants charge admission? When they gate knowledge behind walls of money and power? We stop growing. We stop reaching. We become smaller. The facility's defenses activated. Alarms screamed across all channels. I am going to tear down those walls, Marcus continued, even if it kills me. Because the alternative is watching the galaxy stagnate under the weight of institutional greed. And I just cannot live with that. The Rusty Comet dove toward the facility. Energy beams lanced through space. Shields flared. Hull plating scorched. Crix laughed maniacally at the helm. If we survive this, drinks are on me for a year. When we survive this, Jackson corrected, firing the ship's weapons with surgical precision. Quor worked her console frantically. I am detecting the main data core. Heavily shielded. We will need to get close. How close? Ramming distance, Marcus grinned. I knew I liked you, Quor. Crix, you heard the lady. Get us in there. The rusty comet screamed through the facility's defenses like a meteor. Smaller ships exploded around them. The hull breached in 3 places. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically. They hit the facility's outer shell going far too fast. The impact threw everyone against their restraints. Alarms wailed. Sparks rained from damaged systems. But they were through. Quar plugged directly into the facility's network. Bypassing security. Accessing core data. They have everything here, Marcus. Every piece of precursor knowledge they ever hoarded. Centuries of suppressed research. This is bigger than we thought. Then we broadcast all of it. Every last file. That will take 10 minutes. Can we hold that long? Syndicate forces were already converging on their position. The answer was obvious. No. They could not hold for 10 minutes. Marcus looked at his crew. These people who had followed a hungover bartender into the jaws of death because they believed in something bigger than themselves. Get to the escape pods, he ordered. Not happening, Crick said immediately. The others echoed agreement. That was not a request. Jackson Rivers met his eyes. You said this was about making sure knowledge stays free, about standing on the shoulders of giants. Well, we are standing on your shoulders right now, Marcus. And we are not abandoning the giant. Quar's console chimed. Upload at 30%. 8 minutes remaining. The hull shuddered as Syndicate forces began cutting through. Marcus picked up his harmonica. Then I guess we better make this count. He started to play. The same tune from the monolith. The same notes that had started everything. And across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen as humanity's stubbornness, wrapped in melody and defiance, sang its last song into the darkness. The upload hit 100%. Knowledge flooded free.